right, so Margot Boheme is passionate about spiritual and sexual intimacy. She's made it a mission to create a safe place for people to explore pleasure and support them to create intimate, fulfilling lives. This French woman was, always looking for advice around sexuality from a very young age, and she just got shamed more than once when asking uncomfortable questions. And so she had to learn about relationships and intimacy as she went along, practicing on her own, experimenting with friends, and later with lovers. And in her 20s, she reconnected with spirituality, which in turn allowed her to tune deeply into her sensitivity and intuition. So she studied esoteric arts, ceremonial work, and energetic and somatic healing methods, and really blends all of that together with sensuality and sexuality.
Yeah, she's a love, and she's got a really cool podcast. You're going to want to check that out. I think it's called
Pleasure
what is
and
it?
Intimacy. Pleasure
Yes.
and Intimacy Podcast.
Yeah, and you can also watch it on YouTube or listen to it as a podcast. Willow and I will be featured soon, and I think I'm episode number 2, so tune in for that.
Go check.
Oh, I know what I want to tell everybody. Hey guys, would you please give us a 5-star rating at your favorite streaming app, because we want to spread the word. Sex Reimagined, we're taking over the globe. And we really appreciate your help in doing that. So, tune in, turn on, and fall in love
with Margot Boheme.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. How are you guys?
Happy.
We're doing great.
That's good.
Happy. So tell us a little bit about your work, Margot. What got you into the sexual healing world?
Yes. I really feel that it comes from when I was very young, I always been very inquisitive about sexuality and intimacy. And I was really trying to find, information. That was not the time of the internet, right? But it seems like something very elusive, and I couldn't wait to know more about it.
How old were you when you started to think about that? What age were you at?
I think younger than 10, I imagine, around 8, 9, to be inquisitive about it. And trying really to find information, and how the information was not really available, for, little one like me. You can say today that, I went to see, something that was not proper information, in the sense that it was magazine pretty much for men, right?
Right.
So that, definitely the Playboy magazine. So, from that, I kind of explore as soon as I could, on my body, and exploring pleasure in my body. And as I was really open as a child can be, I didn't really get this whole framework about sexuality as a taboo. I learned the taboo despite, my really open and curious, inquisitive mind. Really quickly, I understood that nobody could see and know about it. And I remember some experience with my mother, asking her a question, right? I really asking her, about okay, what about oral, Mom?
Uh-huh.
And being super,
what was Mom's wisdom, I wonder?
Know more. Oh my gosh. That was something. I was always doing that in the car for some reason.
Uh-huh.
She couldn't escape, right?
Oh, right.
So, that's where you would ask her. Not doing oral in the car. That's where you would ask Mom about oral or other sexual things.
She's driving, and I'm just asking all those questions, and I can see her literally froze.
Yeah.
And kind of her energy contracts, right?
Wow.
And so she tried her best, from what she was coming from, which is like pretty much, let's not talk about it. And it's pretty much like dirty. Sex is dirty.
Okay.
So
I was wondering, like, growing up in France, because in America, we're like, oh my God, they're so much more open. And we have all these like ideas of how much cooler Europe is sexually. And so I was wondering so for you to feel dirtiness and shame and reluctance to like speak comfortably about it, that really reminds me of how I grew up. So I guess maybe France and America aren't too far off from each other.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we have like kind of like the same culture background with religion, right? And I haven't been raised with religion too much.
Okay.
But in Europe, the religion is so interwoven with the belief and what it's allowed, right?
The
it's
culture,
the collective consciousness. That's not something that you are taught, but it's something that you learn, because as a child, you watch and see, and you are a sponge, right? And so your imprints on previous generation pattern, which is like, like how we are transmitting, like trauma, fear, and belief of our environment. So when you talk about sex and intimacy, from like the European perspective, it's very, what I would say about European people, they see sex as a package, in the sense that like it's a part of something bigger. And so, like there is this whole art of seduction and courting that, I haven't been there for a while, so, it's evolving as well. And we also have fast food sex. It's totally prevalent.
You can buy that anywhere.
In many cultures. Right? Like, it's just, like the way, see it as, something to go on the side, but that we cannot talk about. But like in what you learn, right, in courtship and how you can actually like create intimacy with someone, there is this whole evolution of a date, right, that you would have, that I feel is not as prevalent in our dating culture in North America. So, and it's just my perspective and my vision, but it's always make me laugh when people talk about like, like the French lovers, because for sure there is good lovers, but there is bad lover as well. I mean, like, we all been somehow brought into this world because of sex, right? We all come from there.
Only one way in,
but nobody is like...
Yeah, it's the root. It's the root of who we are, I read a study one time that said... the average European will have their heart broken 2 times in a lifetime. Americans, 5 times in a lifetime. Interesting, huh? And so I'm just thinking about that as you're talking about like it being a whole package, and like this is not just to like explore sexuality. This is like to have it go somewhere, and we're courting and we're dating, and maybe the somewhere is to sex, and then it fizzles out, but I had someone else too recently, they're like, just be like the French, just go have a cigarette and a latte and get over it.
Well, here's another thing, like,
get over your heartbreak already.
I think for me, coming of age, nudity was really, there was so much stuff around it for me growing up. And it took me a long time to be comfortable being naked, not only just with myself, but with other people. And so I had this vision of like these topless beaches, and I always have this feeling, and I have no reason to think this, except it got somehow plugged into my conditioning, that, Europe people are comfortable with their bodies, and they're more comfortable with nudity, and like they're less hung up on the skin they're in. And I'm curious if that is something that you know to be true or not.
Yes. So that's an interesting. I'm curious of where it's coming from, right? Like how we imprint on those beliefs. In an early age, I went with my family in nude beach right? And that was a way. My mother always said that, like, she didn't want, like, the mark of the bathing suit.
Right, sure. No taglines.
Right? And I mean, like, in my family, nudity in the family never really been a problem. I can only say that as a woman, there is still, you know, like, layers of self-love and self-acceptance that you need to learn as a woman. And that is not really something that is taught, you know, like, I would say that from my experience, I've been raised by a woman that find herself in the world of men and try to kind of like navigate a world that is not her own, which is not really inspiring to become this like woman, that archetype, right? Like full of confidence, loving her body, etc., etc. So I feel it's really layered, and we are a multi-layered being. There is so much in us that's come actually not from us, and that's something that we have learned one way or another through our young years.
What?
Yeah, so it sounds like very similar to so many of us. You were raised by a woman, a mother who was trying to fit into the masculine paradigm and didn't really know how to do it from a feminine perspective. I'm curious, like, how you got, you know, how you made your way to really just owning your own sexual sovereignty, standing in your own sexual power, you know, you coming to the reality and the truth of using sexuality as a modality for healing.
Yeah. So that's a long story, but to make it short, I really grew up as a tomboy, and from the belief that I got about womanhood, I kind of like rejected it, right? And I went into a life very over masculinized, in the sense that I did like an engineering career. I was like boxed in a very typical, cliche, you know, way of life, the 9 to 5, deeply suffering inside, but not really finding a way to, you know, like do difference and finally be me. Like at the end, you know, like I just wanted to be me.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, like I explored, you know, like all over 20s and 30s. And at this time in my 30s, I really wanted to dive in. And I started to, you know, like read a lot of books and explore with my lovers. And I always identified as a highly sensitive person. And that's something that intuitively I played with in my sexuality and intimacy with people. And somehow I didn't really realize it at the time, right? But along the way, I found out that this energetic part of herself can dance with a lover. And it might be a little bit woo and
bring on the woo-woo, baby. We like it here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're all about it. We love energetic dance.
So just like coming from this place that was very natural and transitioning in my life toward like a more holistic, energetic career. I do like a lot of work actually with women about sexual healing, and it didn't come to be, you know, from my own willing. It's just that after a while I couldn't, you know, like it was so prevalent in the women coming to see me about like this sexual healing piece that was actually keeping them trapped in a life that one day they open their eyes and they're kind of like, whoa, how did I get there?
Right. Yeah. Like,
what?
if I don't do something, I'm going to end up living like this will be it, you know?
Yeah. I love how you're exemplifying, like, you know, you went from this like really one lifestyle to a completely different lifestyle, and then you let that lifestyle lead you and form you and shape you. And based on what the people coming to you for help needed, that became like what you offer and who you are and what you give. And, you know, I think that's such a important piece. I was just talking to a client last night, like, you can't skip over the dark parts of the healing process. Like, you can't bypass the pain or the numbness or the lack of sensation or the fiery sensations. You have to go through that.
Yeah, and the willingness to be seen in the pain and in like that part of ourselves that doesn't really want anybody to know just how, you know, how much grief we have, how lost we feel, how unattractive we feel, how uncertain, how afraid. It's like we want everyone to think we're okay, but somewhere inside we're not. And to be able to allow that part of you to be held for a few minutes. Like, you don't have to be strong right now. You can just set all of it down and just really feel whatever is here in this moment, because that's where the transformation happens. So, Margot, what was like, okay, a couple things, is two questions for you. One is, what was one of the books that stood out to you that really was like a watershed moment that went, aha, starting to answer the question, yeah, there is something more, and finally I'm finding it. And then I'll follow up with my other question from there.
Sure. So, like, the one that I really like, it's by Margot Boheme.
Margot Boheme.
The ecstatic...
Sex, I think. Sexual ecstasy.
Sexual ecstasy.
Yeah.
The art of sexual ecstasy. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Great to listen to, by the way. Good on
Great. Well, I'm going to put that on rotation.
As an auditory learner, I just, yeah. But yes, her work is just
and she
incredible.
That's right.
And your namesake, Margot.
Sorry? It's your namesake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And your namesake,
like,
too, right?
you know, like, it's so interesting how she connects, like, the sexuality and the divine. When she has this experience with a lover, and it's where, like, you know, like, it shakes you. Like, when you have this deep experience. And that's something that I talk all the time, you know, intimacy can deepen and deepen as you get to know someone and spend some time with this person, but it doesn't have to. You can actually be with a new lover and open like this sacred space to be yourself and allowing the other person to be themselves. And it's magical. And it's, you know, like in my practice with women, there is quite a bit of like coaching, I believe, you know, like talking, you know, like the talking part of the work. But like the part that I prefer, like, is like the somatic part, when you go into the body and start to feel and having memory of experience coming back to you. And from that, you know, I'm really interested into the whole nervous system and how, you know, your nervous system learn as a way to protect you. But as you gain in awareness of yourself, you realize that what actually protects you also limits you. And so there is this aspect in sexuality, right? Like, and it can seem quite mundane in the way of an experience can happen. It doesn't have to be a big trauma over your body to actually your body kind of like gain like this experience as a threatening experience. And women, you know, I see that a lot in women, but it's happened with men. Like, it's not a question of gender, but it's like what I saw with the beginning of my practice with women, it was anchored. All those stories were anchored into the body.
Yeah. The issues are in the tissues, as they say.
I love that. I love that. And so when I start to kind of like dive in the body, I realize that it's quite uncomfortable to be there. It's quite, you know, like to do the shadow work. So kind of like unraveling the part of yourself that you put on the side because you had this experience that you cannot really process at the moment. And it's actually a safety mechanism to allow you to kind of like box in those experiences that you're like, okay, well, let's put that in the basement and let's look at it later. And so there is a moment in life where you have to examine those boxes, because like, and you can really feel that energetically into the nervous system. Like you get stuck, you get contracted, you kind of like froze with all those stories, and it kind of like prevents you to evolve and expand. And you know, we're like in this world of evolution, right? And so it's like this learning journey that we're all on, and there is stuff popping up, and we need to somehow look at it and investigate it, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've learned with sexuality and pleasure, because like, you know, like it's way beyond sexuality, is that when you unravel those pieces, but you are in state of pleasure and relaxation, it really helps you to release those energetic blocks. And as women, I learned that the tough way. I was not in touch with my body. I've been like in war very early in age. And so that's prevented me to get deep into my body, into my pleasure. And so that's what got me back on the road of sexual healing and healing through pleasure.
That was going to be my next question. Well, and first I just want to, reflect back, like absolutely that piece around intimacy, that so many people don't realize that intimacy is something you can have in a nanosecond. It's not something that you need, 10 phone calls and 3 dates to discover. It's a door that opens on our side, and it is so magical. When you trust that part of yourself, then you can bring that to anyone, and it's so liberating. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up. And also the piece around, sexual healing. You don't have to have had a trauma in order to benefit from sexual healing. There are all sorts of contractive moments that happen in a human's life that causes them to shut down. And it doesn't have to be trauma related for the energy to simply contract, because we all experience pain and grief and obstacles and, unfortunate things. I mean, I remember in a session once, I processed in a sexual healing session, like issues from the playground with other kids, just feeling left out. And sometimes it's just like that core human experience of being left out that is stuck in your body, preventing you from really acting out your deepest desires. And so back to my question, is what was there a pivotal experience in your personal life that like blew the doors open for your own body?
Yes. The first one that came to my mind is from, I was in my 20s, and I met this guy that is deeply spiritual. And so like I kind of like meet for the first time someone, like a man that is actually interested in this kind of subject and read books. And I mean, like for me, this is so hot.
Yeah.
This is super hot stuff. I'm already all dripping of excitement.
Hey, listeners out there.
Talk to me dirty and some Taoist
You know what's sexy, baby? Is you being able to talk a little bit of spiritual and talk lots of sexual. Let's blend them together and read those books. It's so fun. So hot. So anyways, you met this guy.
Yeah, and so we dated a little bit, but we were like from like completely different culture. So here I am with my European background, very open and everything, and he's Sikh from North India.
Okay.
And we have those magical moments, and I remember to be at the restaurants talking to him, and I could see energetically, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, but our energetic body already in union. And it freaked me out a little bit.
Oh, really?
That was the first time you'd ever seen that or experienced it. Wow, how old were you?
I was in my 20s, so let's say like 27, 28.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was kind of sweating. I was like, oh my, and trying to be just super casual.
Right, being cool.
Like,
Play it cool. I'm hot, but I'm playing it cool.
Are you experiencing what I'm experiencing right now? Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked him afterwards, and he was not. So it was the first time that I really met someone as sensitive as me. And what I realized is that he didn't really. I'm very visual, so sometimes I see stuff. But like it was more on the sensorial perspective. And where I started to exchange, I was giving him energy healing, and he was giving me massage the way he has learned from his culture, very intuitive. And I would be amazed by this big guy. I love big guys, like just, like a highly masculine presence, but also this receptivity that was able to really feel my body and somehow find the pain in my body that myself I had disconnected from.
Right. Ding, ding, ding.
So I was like, wow.
So you were able to feel your own receptivity, or you were able to feel his receptivity, or both?
So for me, what was mind-blowing, it's like feeling someone feeling me.
Yes. Ding, ding.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I am seen. This guy is seeing me.
Yeah. And I'm seeing me because this person's holding up a mirror. And the thing I've been disconnected to that I didn't even know I was disconnected to, the pain, the disowned parts, whatever it is now here. And in that moment, we have access to being more whole. We're uncovering more of us. Yeah. Great story.
Wow. Beautiful.
So, did you get to see him more than once, this lovely Indian man?
Yeah, like we had like a very passionate fling, over a few years. It was fantastic. Like, I think this person really came into my life into like these pivotal moments where I was like realizing something in my practice, and it was brought to me on a silver platter in my personal life. And I feel that it's something that many healer and coach go through on their healing journey, is that your life experiences are golden nuggets about what's going on in you, but also in the world. Yeah. And I really believe in the world of vibration, how people find themselves, and how you can actually find like a guide, a coach, or, like even like a future partner in the world of vibration and aligning. And that's really a gift.
Well, Margot, you were like speaking our language, sister. So, we're like totally in the same tribe. And I was just...
This is so fun.
I was thinking, Willow, I have my story of that. My guy was from Iran, and we just had this... I mean, he took me to places I had never knew was possible. It was such a breakthrough. And Willow, I think I know who yours was, but did you have a pivotal moment where you felt like someone just opened doors for your system and upgraded it?
Yeah, mine was in my early 20s too. Was I in my late 20s? Yeah, it was my partner that I was with for 6.5 years, and I remember seeing angels like up over the back of his head while we were making love one time. And it was at that time that I was getting into Taoist sexology, and he was a non-ejaculator, and he was like my third man I'd been with by my late 20s who was into non-ejaculation technique. That's a lot, I know. And so the men just kept showing up, and so I kept being curious, like, what is this thing? And then I was reading the books, and Montauk Chia's, but really it was Stephen Chang's book was the Tao of Sexuality. That was my Bible for a long time. That was probably the first relationship or the first sexual intimacy that I experienced where there was a big spiritual.
Was this the same guy who you went to Hawaii with, to Kauai, and was like living off the land for a week of paradise?
Oh no, that wasn't a relationship. This guy, we were together for 6.5 years, and he was 27 years older than me. So almost 30 years older than me, but you couldn't really tell because he had been doing the Taoist practices for 30 years or 20 years, however long. So he looked really young. He had that very youthful spirit, and he was just very spiritual. So we just had a great spiritual connection. I think, for those of us who are in this, who are more energetic and more woo-woo, like having that language around spirituality be similar and the same is such a turn on. And then having that connection with the divine, because it's like, people are going to come and go. We've got this changing plane that we're living on where things are going to change, and they're going to change again, and then they're going to change again. But what doesn't change is this other field that we have access to, which is the Tao or pure consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And you can really access that through moments of deep, deep rapture and pleasure in such a profound way. Rapture. So Margot, I'm curious about when women come to you, and they haven't quite formed their relationship with their sexuality to the level that they know that they can. What are some of the ways that you guide them or walk them through? What are some, maybe you could give us a practice, or how do you kind of take them down the path?
Yeah, well, for me, I don't think gender really matter on that. I really feel that men and women, both, we need to learn more about our own body before introducing someone. It's so important the way you can actually are able to guide someone and to put words on what you like and what you don't. And also coming from a place of really gentleness and compassion. If something is not to your taste, how can you bring it up in a way that is constructive and not destructive? Something that I talk a lot with women is about how to not bruise the masculine ego of their partner, and just keep the fire burning as you're guiding someone that might take it personally. So there is a lot of discussion that is more about literally your vibe as being open and loving and not judgy and sharp. There is this whole thing that you can
enclose,
cultivate, right? And get aware of. That from
I love that you brought it back to vibration, because it is a vibe, isn't it? It's we're either vibing open, receptive, compassionate, curious, or we're vibing triggered, tight, impatient, it is definitely a vibration. I never really thought of it quite like that before.
Yeah.
So how do you help someone with the communication piece?
Well, I feel that it's something to be rehearsed. If you're not comfortable into really communicating and talking potentially with a partner as you're into it, I feel it's really make a difference to actually find maybe 5 things that you don't like to do. For example, there is so much thing with anal. Anal is a practice, but it's still super taboo. We're opening this big box about anal play, kind of some people are really triggered by it. And some people think that being open sexually is doing it all, doing all the technique, right? And so coming back to the self piece, I feel that it's so important that you might know and how to bring up and be like, like it's actually not really my thing, and just like bringing it from like a gentle place. And I mean, when you are with like an intimate partner, you can always reevaluate because things change and things evolve, and you might have these whole worlds to explore. And as you are feeling comfortable, you are opening the world of possibilities, right? But I feel that like from, like this personal perspective, I can see that like for myself, it's really about playing and cultivating the play with myself and other, and really find the time to actually, I don't want to say work, but play on that. So what I really engage people to do is like play with yourself. And I give people home play that are mostly like the senses. And everybody loves my French sexy voice. So I do, like little guided meditation for some people to go in, because people are really focused on the genitals, which is great, but there is this whole world to explore before. And so it gives them something they can just plug into their ears and just go with the flow, and they do whatever feels good. If I suggest something that doesn't feel good, like they don't have to do it, and they can have this little pre-training before they bring the partner.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we can hire you for some voiceover work.
Yeah. How long are these audios? Like, do they go on for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, 45 minutes?
I do like little audio, like specifically for people. If we find something like a place, for example, in the body. So for example, let's talk belly fat in the woman, like there is so many women that are actually disconnected with this very deeply sensual place in the body. And it's beautiful. Right. And I mean, like I said, that I'm super curvy, like you want love handles,
and partners love the curve of the belly.
And I feel that there is this feminine, voluptuous, curvy side that actually men want and crave and want to explore. So coming into like the play mode would be to actually have 20 minutes deeply focus on this part of the body that you kind of dread. Like there is so many women that hold their belly in, right? Or being a certain way, right? Like showing the best angle, and not being like fully open, receptive, and can really be like a beautiful exploration. It doesn't have to be sexual.
Yeah, interesting. Right. I think even in my own life, I can see where I'm so much more unconditional with the way I like things, the way I like certain parts of my body to feel when I'm touching that part of my body, but that doesn't always translate that I like the way it looks in a photograph. In a bathing suit. Like, there's still that judgment that arises visually that disappears, thank God, when I'm in the world of touch and I can use my senses to adore a part of my body that I don't always adore visually.
Well, not only that, but it's like when we're actually in pleasure and in our sensuality and in rapture, we look sexy no matter what the fuck we look like, no matter what body we're in.
Yes.
We do look sexy. I'm always coaching people. I'm like, I want you to put little mirrors, like little ones, and don't look in them. Just like catch a glimpse when your eyes just happen to catch a glimpse. And you're going to see the curve of that belly or that curve of that elbow or that back of the knee. You're going to catch these little glimpses while you're actually experiencing the Shakti moving through your body. Because when Shakti is moving through your body, it doesn't really matter at all. Your age, your size, your color, your shape, your gender, none of that matters. Like, people look hot.
Like, that's worth repeating. Everyone should have your ears perk up if you're driving or something. Like, let's repeat what Willow just said, because this is magic. When you're feeling sexy, you look sexy. And there is something about going in and feeling that inside radiance, that feeling of rapture, that experience of pleasure that transcends everything. And to be able to like wear that more often, and you're gonna love the skin you're in so much more. I've wrestled with body image stuff my whole life, and I remember one lover said, "Baby, your curves are like breasts all over. There's not an inch I don't love." And I thought, well, that is a hell of an answer. I will take it.
Yes.
Breasts all over. Well, enjoy yourself. So I imagine, naturally, women really struggle with that. Have you worked with men who are also struggle with body image things?
Absolutely. I have actually, and it's super sad because like there is a lot of pressure on men and women, body image wise,
Totally.
right? And
everyone wants to feel attractive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is people that actually don't have any intimate interaction because this self-love piece is not there. And they are dreading to be naked with someone. And I feel it goes deeper than only the physical body, because when you're naked, like here you are, right? Like you're in the birth suit and this is what you get, baby, right? So it can feel deeply vulnerable. And that's what's, at the end create the intimacy and the connection and the magic to unravel yourself.
Exactly. Yes, vulnerability, I'm always saying it's one of the key pieces to intimacy.
Yeah.
And nothing is more vulnerable than just being naked. Like here I am and all of my, can't hide this pimple, can't hide that roll, can't hide this, it's all just out there in the open.
And that's what leads to great sex is that vulnerability, because it's an emotional thing. It's like we can get our bodies together and we can create friction, right? And we can have sex. It can be very physical. But what makes it great sex
intimate
is the connection to the emotional. And that doesn't mean you have to be in love to have great sex, but you have to be emotionally available and aware to be able to share and transmit and vibrate with another body and have it feel magnificent.
Do you work with couples as well, Margot?
Yes, I do, because it's coming from this exploration that people have and need at some point. We haven't really learned, right? At school, it's like if you have any sex ed, right, by chance, because sometimes you don't even have that. But it's pretty much don't do sex, right? And so we're coming from this space that we don't know anything about it. And so you have couples that are actually curious and brave enough to bring someone in and be like, hey, we want to explore. We love each other, but it's been a little bit dull because we know each other so well that, I end up doing the stuff that I know she likes. Right? And so this repetition have a lack of, for example, I love chocolate. I always say, give me chocolate at every meal. At some point, I'm like, give me a salad, right? So even if it's good, and with a partner that you've been a decade, maybe 2, maybe 3 sometimes, right? There is this aspect that, oh yeah, I know you. I know what you like. When you have this look, I know that you're on, right? So I think it's more a question about opening the space and having someone with them exploring and maybe give them a little bit tips on the way. But at the end of the day, it's more coming from them being willing to explore and be curious. So it's always a lot of home play and mostly privileged intimacy time. People complain about their sex life, especially couples, right? They're like, we haven't done it forever. I don't remember the last time we did it. And
right, or we always do the same thing. It's
right. So, or you have people that are like, oh yeah, every Friday night. It's on, right? But it's always the same Friday fish meal, like, so the thing that is important along the way, it's more like about playing with your lover and actually booking time with your lover. And this question of spontaneity always come at some point, because people really believe that this is the spontaneity that's make it good and everything. But when you change the perspective a little bit and you're like, hey, like, we're gonna have a date tonight, we're on, and I'm texting you and I'm like, this is all the thing that I'm gonna do to you, or would you like to explore that with me? Or I've been always dreaming about like doing this practice, like, would you be okay for us to try it tonight? This is hot. This is preparing the journey to be like super like
yeah. And I think what you brought up, this is why it's so valuable to work with someone who's passionate about this work as a facilitator, because sometimes you don't have ideas. You're not sure how to tap into your own erotic nature. It's like we lose touch with that, especially in long-term relationships. So to have a coach support you and your partner by asking questions that help you reveal inside of yourself desires that are just waiting to be explored just brings so much more connection for the relationship. And just like, people would invest in getting a tennis coach when they want to get better at tennis or improve their golf swing, or get rehab on their knee, because they injured it. You want to get a love coach when your relationship has been injured, or when you want to get better at being a lover. We're not just built that way.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. We do need support. We need guidance, especially if we haven't really looked into it. We haven't done much reading. We haven't done much research. But not only figuring out like what might be an erotic turn on and what might be a fun practice or something for you to play with your partner, but the language, like how to ask for it, how to ask for it in a way that they can receive it. Because it could, potentially, if you've been with someone for a long time and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, let's try some anal tonight. That might freak them out a little bit, so you've got to know how to speak to them as well in a way that they can receive and hear you.
Yeah. And also, I think that's a good point about language, because I think it's important for us to actually consider the psycholinguistics of language, because words have power. And they can be an invitation or they can be a door that gets closed. And so when you sort of expand how you communicate, you get closer to the heart of something. And then we get to touch each other at a deeper level, which again just leads to hotter, yummier, sexier things. So Margot, how can people reach you if they wanted to work with you? What's that process like?
Yeah, you can get all the information on my website, margotboheme.com. And
can you spell that?
MargotBoheme.com.
Beautiful. And I understand you also have a free gift for our audience.
Yes, it's about sexual healing. So bringing this awareness about like the layer of our experience and the depth of our experience in our sexuality, and understand that whatever we have, we carry it with us. And so it's an unrivaled experience to kind of like dive there and see what's there and which belief or block we have in sexuality. And once you remove this block, the vitality and the energy that you gain in the bedroom, but also in your life.
What's one of the big things that you've seen a client, like another part of their life has transformed? Let's say their career has transformed through their sexual awakening, or their relationship to their family transformed, or something in their health.
So the first one that's come to me, it's from an amazing guy that came to me because of his sexual challenge coming from trauma. I've been abused in his young years, and being borderline autistic. So having like a lot of trouble with intimacy, being with his partner and wanting to give her everything and even more. It was an amazing, and I felt so honored to hold a space for this guy that was willing to explore the darkest corner of his life and reclaim his pleasure and his sovereignty in his pleasure. So that was a big one. And so from that, he started to show up with his partner in his intimate life, coming like more and more from a place of openness instead of like maybe dreading and wanted to be done as soon as possible. And also it opened him the confidence to change his work and kind of like explore something he wouldn't have the courage to, just the changement, just activate the changement. You were saying that change, right? It's like the constant that we have in this life. And trauma and this energetic constriction that we have talked about really kept you frozen from protection but limitation. So once you just like let it go of those burden, it kind of like opened to you to like a new quality of energy that you can channel into your life. Confidence is a big one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that thread about, the one thing you can bet on is change. Like change is going to happen. It's don't resist it. Well, whatever you have to do to kind of heal the part of us that doesn't like change is a worthy thing to spend time on. And I don't know if you've seen it. There's a Netflix documentary with Noah Hill's, that's his name? Jonas. Anyway, some Hollywood guy. And his psychiatrist.
Oh, yeah, Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
It's called
Stutz. Yeah. And he has this thing, and at first it sounds kind of depressing, but he says the 3 things that you can count on in life that will always remain the same is you can always count on uncertainty, pain, and work. And at first it sounds like, well, that's a drag. But then, like, when I sit with it, I'll speak for myself, it was like, yeah, that's a part of life. And our ability to be resilient despite that, our ability to increase our capacity to be more comfortable or to be more tolerant of uncertainty, to be more patient with others and ourselves when we have pain, and to find ways to enjoy our work because they're all there. And if we're not at war with that, it just seems like there's so much more peace to be enjoyed.
Absolutely.
So anyways, change.
Yes. That's allow you to go deeper and to see the golden nuggets.
So are there any challenges regarding change that you worry about regarding the sexuality industry or people's sexual nature that you think about?
The piece that worrying me the most in sexuality is the fact that somehow being open in sexuality, and I just talked a little bit about it previously, it's about doing all the things and being okay with all the things. Right. And
that you have to try everything to be really, truly sexually sovereign.
And I'm a people pleaser. That's like my old blueprints. That's my own work in this life. Like to be really clear and really grounded and feel strong in my body, to make sure, like whatever happened to me in life, being able to be like, okay, yeah, I allow that in me, right? So like, it has this very empowering piece that you can take that in everything in your life, and you don't have to be in like please mode, like accepting everything because of, this openness that somehow you have to be okay.
Right. Yeah, so did you hear that, everybody? You have permission to not be into all the things. You can have preferences. You can say yes to this and no to that.
And you can say yes and no at different times.
Yeah.
Just because you said yes to something at one time doesn't mean you have to keep saying yes to it over and over again.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Your boundaries are going to change moment to moment. And this is one of the things Margot's really highlighting for us. Is like, it's about listening, to what's authentically true for you in each moment. That's the healing. Like, that's where the healing of sexuality comes forward. And that's where we get to really stand in our sexual sovereignty or sexual power and our authentic truth is through the listening. Because even when you're with the same person or, for a long time or been with them a few times and you did something kind of risque and outside of your comfort zone last time, it doesn't mean you have to do it again this time. And it doesn't mean you won't want to do it again sometime in the future. It's about listening.
Well, in the spirit of that, I have the same question for both of you, which is, what is something that at a different time in your life you are a no to, and you have since turned it into a yes? Or you could flip that. What was something that was a yes that you're now a no to in your own sexuality?
Margot, take it away. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, the wheels are turning. I feel like it's more having, like playing with the submissive dominance polarities. And, like, because I am a woman, I would be more in a submissive role and blah, 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 blah. Like this whole subject, we could do 10 podcasts about it. But like,
right, it's a good topic.
Yeah,
that's something, like I was very open to explore, and I have probably explored a little bit too much for my nervous system at the time. And I didn't really recognize it. And so after an experience like that with, like, let's say it, I let myself go. Like, I was not actually in touch enough with my own body and boundaries. That was not really the fault of my partner. I could totally deflect and say like, oh, we did, yeah. But no, I really see it as like honing and the sovereignty of your body and the importance of it. So that's a big one for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that and being vulnerable about that. It's a someone who needs to hear that just got it. So thank you.
Yeah.
What about for you, Willow?
Well, my partner always wanted anal sex, but it was like his approach and the way he wanted it and the way it was just like, ugh. It was this coming at me thing, And so now that, we've been doing a lot of anal workshops, me and Leah have been teaching a lot on it, and just I've been researching more, and I've started to explore that with professionals in the industry. And so now it's more like a curiosity and an invitation for that to be enjoyable and pleasurable, whereas in the past it had just been like, no, you can't have that from me. You can't get that from me because of the approach and the way that it was being gone about. I think that's really one of the important things when we are expanding our sexual repertoire and doing things that we've never done before and things that we think are dirty or bad or wrong or taboo, is we really miss out on the experience of evolving and expanding based on the self-limiting beliefs that we have about those specific things. What about you, Leah?
Well, I really relate to the anal, and had a partner. I used to joke and call him, "You are butt hungry." Okay, you can never get enough of the butt. And and it was, although he had a lot of range in terms of what he could hold and his approach. There was a neediness in him regarding that type of sexual exploration that often put me on edge, had me feeling like I had to, which were all coming in from my own stuff. And then just there was a lot to unpack psychologically for me regarding anal play and fear and discomfort, the fear of pain, that had me close the door more than open the door. And I always judged myself for wanting to close the door. and feeling like I should want to open the door because I see other people exploring it and having these wonderful experiences. And so I'm kind of holding two things. One is I said yes when I wanted to say no quite a bit and ended up having incredible experiences as a result. Because there's a difference between saying no because it's a true and honest boundary or saying no out of apprehension, fear, the unknown, all those things. It's hard. Oftentimes it's hard to figure out which is right, which no is real.
And so that leads me to a question. How do you know? Like, what would both of you say to, like, how do you get a read on that for yourself? Like, if somebody doesn't have a good sense of discernment quite yet in their nervous system, what are some tricks that you have?
Well, I think for me, just in regards to that particular piece, is I'm really glad I stretched myself out of my comfort zone. So we can do hard things. And studies have shown that people who can do hard things get awarded tremendously in life. It really ups life satisfaction scores when people have it within themselves to do hard things. So challenging ourselves to try something new or try something that we're afraid of, whether that's in the bedroom or outside the bedroom, I think has a lot of efficacy to it. Having done that when I was uncertain has led me to a new place in my life where I'm less literally uptight about my ass. Like, enough healing has happened. There's been more exploration. I feel more free than ever before. There's less pain and discomfort than ever before. So I feel like if I hadn't wrestled with that in my younger life, I wouldn't be this open and free to truly enjoy it authentically and to ask for it authentically, which is something I never did in the past. So yeah, a lot of evolution around that topic. What about you, Margot?
What would you say,
Margot? Yeah, I feel that's like, like it's a part of it, right? Like when, especially if you explore with someone, that's to be like, whoa, like I thought it would be okay, but actually it was not. And we have tendency to put those pieces away. Like the many time in my 20s that I say yes, and it was not really a real yes. It might have been a big no, but like, this fear of apprehension, the fear of pain definitely was coming big time. And when your body, expect and brace for potential pain, you're like more contracted and, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, especially with anal. Like if you're like bracing for impact, that's not, like an open and relaxed way to go there. So I feel there is like this kind of dance within ourselves to be open to see and be like, whoa, like maybe like I went above and beyond my boundaries this time, and being able to bring it up to your partner and not from a place of like, that's your fault, to be like, I thought I would be okay. But actually, I needed a bit of time to process it. That's something as a sensitive that get overload in sensorial experience quite a bit. I realized that I need to process the experience to know deeply if it was like a fuck no or fuck yes. Like just like this knowing in the body. Right. And that's a learning curve as well. It's like a muscle that you flex and you get more and more in tune with what is okay and what is not. But we need to do mistakes. Yeah.
And I think yes, exactly. One of the really important things that you're speaking to is like, it's okay to make a mistake.
Right.
It's okay to have what you think is a fuck yes, but then in the end, it wasn't. It was a no, and to learn from that experience and to not blame yourself or make yourself wrong or say, oh, I didn't discern well, or I didn't follow my intuition. Like there's no real value in putting yourself down for that. It's just an opportunity to learn for the next time around.
Yeah, and I think like back to what you were saying, Willow, I think noticing the sensations of how to judge which is which. Like, am I saying no because I'm afraid, but it might be something that's really good for me? Or am I saying no because it's true? And then when we say yes for those two things, it's like there's certain sensations that arise in your body in the aftermath of having experiences where you're confronting those challenges of, is this a place I need to push myself, or is this a place I need to hold and say, no, thank you, that doesn't work for me? And I think that only trial and error can really inform those answers and help create more efficacy for self-trust, for self-awareness, so that you can really know the difference. And that's probably a lifelong thing to explore. Do you have any added advice, Willow, regarding helping people with those distinctions?
Yeah, I think listening to your nervous system, the more you're out of your head and in your body. Margot, any final closing words for our listeners before we wrap up?
Well, what's come up for me is actually the connection with our own inner world and the way we can go deep with a partner. You know, I feel like the people that come to see us most likely would wait many years and have many years of suffering, you know, or shame or guilt or whatever emotion, you know, like come up and wait to get support. And so if there is something that I want to bring up today, is that you don't need to wait to be in an extreme state to actually being inquisitive and reaching out and be like, okay, what's possible for me in this world? And what are my options that can actually help me to have a more, you know, pleasurable, fulfilling life?
I love that. Yeah. So if you've been waiting, people, to get started on a transformation, don't wait till next year when you've got this year. Let this be a reminder that now is the best time. Thank you so much, Margot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
Pleasure. Yeah. Oh, wait, Margot, tell us about your podcast.
The Pleasure and Intimacy podcast that came from, you know, like all my amazing clients that I realized, because I'm always learning more. And the more I'm learning, the more I realize that there is so much out there I need to learn, right? But the information need to be more accessible. The information need to be open, right? So even if it's just listening a podcast and get new ideas or new ways, right, to have more pleasure and get more in touch with your body, that's a beautiful, I listen to podcasts all the time, right? So that's my gift, you know, from my heart to people out there, to have a little snippet of what I do. And if they can get like tips along the way, I'm so happy about it.
Yeah. And I was on Margot's podcast, so y'all should go check that out. And it's so fun to have you here. And best of luck with all the incredible work that you have got going on. And love, 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 love.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure to be here.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
So what are we going to dish up for Margot? She's a dish, right?
She is
Isn't
a dish.
she such a dish?
Oh my gosh. What a
that
dish.
French accent and her just wisdom. And I have to say, I loved her demeanor, like her just very calm, very centered, very just like, it's just simple. It's not complicated, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That really speaks to you. Those are happy nervous systems for your nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was really present to like, wow, like not speaking your first language, you know, would force you to slow down. Mm-hmm. And she's so articulate, you know, but I've never spoken a foreign language. And I can only imagine like how that really would require one to slow down. And I was present to, wow, that would be hard for me.
That would be really hard for you.
Yeah, like I really wish.
Maybe you should learn a foreign language.
And then I thought, I wonder if anyone goes, oh, those American accents sure are sexy. Like we do to all these other accents. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like,
I really don't think
says
so.
That, which is so sad. I don't have a sexy voice. God damn it. I want my accent to just be like hot sauce in the bedroom for foreigners everywhere.
I love
It's not true, though.
I don't think we have sexy accents or Americans, but you know, we're smart. We'll say that for ourselves. But so was
she. Wasn't she fun? Like I just felt like
so smart and just
enter our tribe.
Yeah, Just fantastic. She would corner mom in the car and be like, so mom, what about oral?
Right. I thought, how cool, like how gutsy, like that takes a lot of moxie as a kid.
Yeah,
right?
as a kid.
To go, what about this? What about that? Because parents always say, at least my generation growing up, our generation, I don't know if this was true in Ojai, but I just remember like my mom and the adults in my life saying, you could talk to us about anything. Like, I want you to know you could come and we could discuss anything. And I'm like, I just don't believe you. Number one, I think you'll be uncomfortable. And number two, I am totally uncomfortable. Like, I don't even know how to bring that curiosity to an adult. But now that I am an adult, like, it would be such a privilege to have like my nieces or nephews approach me about sex and ask me the question, tell me about oral. You know, I'd love to have that conversation with a young person. At the age appropriate, I would have to think about what is age appropriate depending on the person who's asking. But I thought, wow, how gutsy. I would have never been able to do that. What about you?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Was there an aunt or an uncle or anybody you think you would?
Yeah. I had an auntie who was like my go-to for anything I was going through. And then my mom was a nurse. So she was always like busting out the anatomy books. You know, this is your vulva and this is your vagina inside of your vulva. So I knew the difference between the vulva and the vagina at a very young age.
Did she know about the vestibular bulbs and Marfan gland or anything like that?
She never talked about those pieces. She never really talked to sexually about it. It was more like anatomical, and this is what you know. But God, there's a book. It's called Where Do I Come From? Have you ever seen that book? It's for little kids. Oh, it is so cute. And it's these naked people. And it's teaching little kids about sex. And so recently, and my brothers and I grew up with this book and reading it to us, you know, and like they're not stick figures, but they're like these drawings of these men and women. They get in the bathtub together.
A picture.
And they're like
Are they
playing in
like
the bathtub.
Stubby?
Yeah, they're stubby. Yes, they're totally stubby.
So they're not super sexy drawing figures.
No, they're really not. But she recently, Gaga, my mama's grandma to, you know, the nephews now. So she's like reading it to the nephews now.
What a great grandmother.
Because my brother would never do it, you know. My brother and his wife, they're not going to do it. And it's time. They're coming of age. Like they're starting to get pubic hair and they're starting to grow and evolve. And it's time for them
So did your mom buy the book or did she find the book that was your guys' book?
That's a good question. I think she bought a new one because I think that lost her.
Yeah. So what's your memory? Like, do you recall like body sensations that you felt looking at that book or? Yeah.
Oh, that book? No. But I mean, I found Playboys under my dad's bed at a pretty early age. So I was like, I
never
was
caught my dad with any porn.
Oh, really? That's unusual.
Yeah. And everyone I know is like, oh yeah, my dad had boxes. I'm like, oh yeah, really? Where did my dad hide?
Yeah. I remember being sexually curious and interested at a very young age. So, and it, you know, and it wasn't like I was looking for things. They just came. Things just started to come. I think like, and that's just the truth about sexuality too. It's like, it's a magnetic force. First of all, it's the foundation of where we come from. And when you look at it through Chinese medicine and Taoism, it's the essence of you. And so when you see somebody who is standing in their essence, they are fucking magnetic and things just come to them, you know? And so and as a child, you don't have all the sort of like stigma or I should be this way or it should look that way or if it's not sexy, if it's not like that. And so if you haven't had a lot of trauma or anything, then you might be more just naturally curious and open and that magnetism, and then things just kind of show up.
I think a lot of that like starts off with like the clothes you're attracted to wearing.
Yeah.
And the music you're attracted to listening to.
Yeah.
And the movies you sneak to watch even though you're not old enough to watch them. You know, like that's Eros,
totally.
You know, starting to talk to you. It has that magnetic attractive, it's drawing you in.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel something.
Do you remember MTV?
MTV, yeah.
MTV. Do you remember?
I remember when HBO first came out.
Do you remember White Wedding? What was it? Billy Idol's White Wedding.
Billy Idol, yes.
Oh my God, that one turned.
Or November Rain by Axl Rose with that model with the dark brown hair. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the prettiest girls in their music videos. They were super sexy.
They can afford
Yeah,
that.
it was definitely hotter than that book my mom was showing me.
Well, I remember like HBO had Nudity. And this was when it was in the Pentecostal phase of my upbringing where my parents were like, no Smurfs because they have magic in them. And no nudity, all this stuff, like lots of rules. And of course, they'd be out on a date and we'd have a babysitter and my brother and I would sneak and find a way to watch HBO. And I remember there was this scene where girls were getting undressed in dressing rooms and you could see their boobs. Mm-hmm. And how hot that was. Like, and it's caused me to reflect since because I think times have changed. Like, I think we're starting to sexualize men a lot more in television than we ever have. Like, my experience of starting to feel this sexual type of sensations in my body stemmed from women because boobs were like the thing, right? That was the forbidden thing. And so that's what was sexy. I never fantasized about a man's body. What was there to fantasize about unless he was a cool guy, Right. So it was like a character could invoke maybe a crush, but like actual sexual sensations were always the object of the feminine. And I'm really wondering, like this next generation, if they will, what they would say, how much of it has shifted gender-wise.
That's a good question, especially because now, well, in California, especially in Santa Cruz, California, there's, all this gender shiftiness. Like, young kids are growing up saying, I'm a boy, I'm a girl. And then they change their mind, when they go through another layer of puberty and then they change their mind again. And so I think there's, there's a lot more possibility. They're sitting with a lot more possibility than
Well, yeah, I mean, pansexual wasn't a thing that anyone taught me growing up, which is just you're just in love with the human that you're attracted to at the moment. It's not really about gender at all. So interesting, all of that. And I guess back to Margot.
It was interesting to hear her French upbringing. And, we have this idea of what, like of the French and that they're so sexually liberated and, maybe many of them are, but it didn't, she still had a lot of taboo and shame and let's not talk about it.
The same words, that I experienced, the same kind of that feeling of dirtiness, like all that stuff that definitely crosses evidently borders and countries, I did love her story about that lover of having like that energetic experience of just like you drop in.
That was a great story.
If someone was walking by and they were paying attention, they could probably feel the sparks, flying off of them. And how, God, that's good.
And the big piece of that for her was that she was actually seen. She was actually seen to her core, to the center of herself. Like what a hot turn on that is. And all it really takes is presence to do that for somebody.
That's right.
So
that being in the moment piece
bring that magic forward.
Totally. It makes me want to eye gaze with Matthew right now.
Yes, you should.
Because eye gazing is a great way to take you to those places when you're not just like looking at someone's eyeballs, but you're actually looking for their soul and their spirit, and connecting with that and just feeling the tingles.
Feeling all the feels.
I loved her piece around just like intimacy and, how much we can show up for that if we choose to, that it's a choice.
Yeah.
And the more practice we have, fuck you guys, it gets easier and easier. But again, it requires being in the moment.
It does. It does. More practice with presence, y'all. Enjoy.
Yeah. So with that, ciao for now.
Thanks for tuning in. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.